You know that moment when your class ends early and your panic starts to rise as you glance over at the clock and realize you still have 5 minutes. Or when you realize you need a filler. These are activities that I keep on hand to save me time and sanity across all my classes. I had a lesson once that I had spent hours, many of planning periods, planning for an activity for a class. The class is 75 minutes long. And I knew that this activity, these series of lessons, was going to take at least 3 class periods. Come to find out, here I go. I'm presenting the lesson to the students. And 30 minutes in, I realize they're almost done. It was like the panic button, my heart rate sped up, my hands got all clammy. What in the world am I going to do for the rest of the class period when they finish and still have 10 minutes left? If you've ever had a class end early and thought, what now? Make sure that you hit like so that you know you're not alone. One of the most difficult things for any teacher is pacing. But if you're only able to teach this class once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times if you're lucky, the pacing sometimes doesn't work out in your favor, and then you end up running out of time. You also have different students in different class periods, and therefore you're going to have some go faster, some take longer. But yet, if you let one class go ahead and keep one behind, well, now you've just created yourself an additional prep because you have to modify tomorrow's lesson to meet those needs. So in order to have them all stay on pace, you need to come up with something engaging, valuable, meaningful, and tied back to your content to keep the students engaged for the remainder of the class period. And normally, you're not just filling time here. You're protecting your sanity and the instructional flow, not to mention the behavior management in your class. So I'm going to give you 3 strategies that worked in my classes through all of my preps. They might differ from what your students enjoy. So while I'm sharing mine, maybe think of 1, 2, 3 of your own protocols that may have worked that your students liked that could use some adapting or tweaking to fit all of your classes instead of just one. The first one that I like to use the most is think, write, pair, share. Many of you might be used to think, pair, share. It doesn't take too much time, but adding the part of writing extends it. The basic idea, if you're not familiar with it, is you give the students something to think about, a prompt. Maybe it's a review. Maybe it's a question that you just came up with that has to do with reviewing the content that they just learned or were exposed to. You could also make something a question that would fit any class, and you can just pull it out whenever you need it. Based on what we learned today, or based on the topic that was introduced today, how would this apply to your future career? Students take time to think about it. They write down their answer. They pair up with someone, and then the next step is to share. Now, depending on how much time you have, you can have them share with just their partner. Then you could have them turn and group up with another pair. So now they're sharing again. And you can actually make that group as big or as small as you want so that eventually they're sharing out to the entire class. Or if you're short on time, you can make it so they pair up and then we're sharing with the entire class. You also could have it something that they need to refine. So maybe they've thought of something, they did the think, then they're writing what they think, what their answer is. Then the pairing up is comparing what their answer is, and then coming up with maybe a revised version that then they share with the whole class. Could be another pair, could be a small group, and so on and so forth until your time is filled. Now, I want to put a plug in here for an AI teaching assistant that I created called the Bell to Bell Buddy that does all of this for you. You open up the GPT, which is in the tool that's in ChatGPT, and it asks you what you were teaching today. You can either say the subject, the standard, whatever you want to say about the class, what grade your students are, and how much time you have left. Based on that, it will give you 3 different unique no prep or low prep ideas to continue the lesson going without having to do any additional prepping and work or even printing. So let's move on to strategy 2, which is the gallery walk. The idea behind a gallery walk is students are going to produce something, and then others are going to walk around and either observe it or make comments or give feedback. So the traditional way that I used to do gallery walk is I would have butcher paper or sticky note paper or any sort of paper in my class. And after we had learned something, then they were to create a takeaway. So it could be a poster, maybe it was just a list, and they can do this on their own. They can do it with groups. They can do it in pairs. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want it to be. You could say that you're going to hang them up in the classroom afterwards, or maybe it's just a review for the day. What you do after that is you put them up. So you're thinking gallery. It could be similar to a science fair. So everyone's producing something, and then we're all walking around and we're going from one place to another. Now, if you're leaning more science fair, you could have the students present what they created, or you could just have a silent gallery walk where they are just walking and silently observing. Now, you could have them leave a comment. So a lot of times I used to have them do, I notice, I wonder. So they're giving feedback to one another. The other thing they can do is you can have them take notes. So they could take notes as they're going around as they are learning different concepts. So you could even divide it out. So the posters, you have one group assigned to this topic, another group assigned to this topic, so on and so forth. And then they fill out their note sheets as they walk around the room. So my final strategy gets students up and moving, and it's based on what I like to use with would you rather. Now, this doesn't have to be would you rather questions, although would you rather is one of my favorite things to do. But the idea is you're getting students to move. So you can have it some sort of like line, or you can have like 4 corners. So you have a question that there's no right or wrong in these. It's just an opinion. What side of this are you on? So if you were to use something like would you rather, which is probably not going to apply to anyone's content or standards as far as the question I'm probably going to throw out, but would you rather graduate early and have all of your friends celebrate, or would you rather graduate with your graduating class but no one can show up? So something like that. They choose a side. There's not a right, there's not a wrong. You could also maybe ask follow-up questions. Why did they choose that? Why not? The other thing is you can do 4 corners. So you could do the same thing, but try to keep it so that it's not right or wrong. The whole idea here is that you're trying just to continue and deepen that knowledge, and then also get the conversations going. So you could, even when they're in their corners or when they're on their sides, have them turn and talk to a student who's sitting next to them. So you give them a follow-up question to ask and answer to that other person. So that just extends it along as well. So of these 3, they can be applied to any content area and really used in any class. Having kind of like this toolbox of 3 or 4 or 5 different things that you could use at any given time, in any given moment, is going to help you when you are doing your planning. You also, if you watched one of my other videos about Introduce, Practice, Produce, you can use any of these in any of those different parts of the framework and then just rinse and repeat them whenever you want. Now that I've got you some no prep activities ready to go, let's talk about starting from scratch when it comes to planning lessons. In the next video, I'll show you the easiest way to repurpose what you already have, even if your classes are wildly different.